Have you ever had a guest who stayed for a really, really long time? Like they said they were just dropping by and then 300 years later, you're still asking when they plan to leave? That's kind of what happened with Spain and the Philippines. People often say Spain ruled the islands for 333 years, and that's true, in a way. But the story is more complicated, like explaining a family tree at a loud party. The Spanish presence actually stretches for 377 years if you count the very first arrival. It's a long, winding tale of a global superpower slowly losing its grip. Not just a local fight for freedom, but also a new kid on the block changing the rules. So let's break it down. 2 dates to remember. First, 1521. The initial meet and greet, a Spanish-funded expedition landed. Historic, but not a settlement. A first date, dramatic, but no one moved in. Second, 1565. Spain returned with moving trucks, ready to stay. They established a government. They built towns. They started to run the place. From then until they packed their bags in 1898, 333 years of direct rule. The end didn't happen in a vacuum. It wasn't just Filipinos saying enough and Spain leaving. It involved brave Filipino revolutionaries. It involved a growing national identity. It involved the United States, a new imperial player. Those forces formed a perfect storm, ending one colonial chapter and starting another. This period is more than numbers and dates. For over 3 centuries, the Spanish flag flew. Generations were born and died under it. Culture changed, religion changed. Let's go back to the beginning of this very long story. The year is 1521. A Portuguese explorer named Ferdinand Magellan, sailing under the Spanish flag, was on a mission. He was trying to find a new route to the Spice Islands. They were like the Silicon Valley of the 16th century. Everyone wanted a piece of that valuable nutmeg. Clove action too. Instead, his fleet stumbled upon a group of islands not on their maps. These islands would later be named the Philippines after Spain's King Philip II. Magellan and his crew were the first Europeans to make recorded contact with the people living there. Upon arrival, Magellan didn't just say hello and move on. He got involved. He made friends with some local leaders, like Raja Humabon of Cebu. He even managed to convert some of them to Christianity. He was basically that tourist who gets a little too into the local culture on day one. But his involvement soon turned into conflict. He tried to assert his authority and demanded that other local chieftains submit to the King of Spain and his new allies. One leader, Lapu-Lapu of Mactan Island, was not having it. He refused to bow to these newcomers, leading to a confrontation that would become legendary. The Battle of Mactan was a disaster for Magellan. Expecting an easy victory with his European weapons and armor, he was met with fierce resistance from Lapu-Lapu and his warriors. On April 27, 1521, Ferdinand Magellan was killed in the fighting. His grand expedition was thrown into chaos, and the surviving crew made a hasty retreat. They had found the islands, but they had failed to conquer them. For Spain, this was a major setback. The first attempt to establish a presence had ended with the death of their famous captain. After this dramatic failure, Spain hit the pause button on its plans for the region for a few decades. This early encounter sets the stage for everything that follows. It shows the local inhabitants were not passive bystanders. They were organized. They had their own political systems. They were willing to fight to defend their autonomy. The story of Lapu-Lapu became a symbol of native resistance that would echo through the centuries. 1521 marks the start of a 377-year timeline of Spanish contact, not colonization. It was more like a trailer for a movie that wouldn't be released for another 44 years. Spain had been introduced to the Philippines, but the real occupation was still a long way off. After the Magellan fiasco, Spain took a long break. For over 40 years, the islands were mostly left to themselves. A memory of a failed expedition and a fallen captain. The Spanish Empire didn't forget. The islands were strategically located for trade with China. The islands were strategically located for trade with the Spice Islands. The idea of a Catholic outpost in Asia was too tempting. So, in 1565, they decided to try again. A new expedition was sent, led by Miguel López de Legazpi. His mission: establish a permanent colony. This was the moment the 333-year clock started ticking. Legazpi was a different kind of leader, a diplomat and strategist. He landed in Cebu. Instead of immediate force, he used diplomacy and trade alliances. He used shows of military power. He founded the first permanent settlement, San Miguel. From there, the Spanish expanded island by island, building forts, making allies, intimidating rivals. A few years later, in 1571, Legazpi moved north to Manila. Manila was a bustling port ruled by a Muslim chieftain. After negotiations and military action, he captured the area and founded Manila. Manila became the administrative and commercial hub. With Manila, they could control trade routes and govern more effectively. They began building stone churches. They built government buildings. They built defensive walls. This marked the true beginning of Spanish rule. The Spanish brought religion. They brought laws. They brought social structure. They introduced the encomienda system, land grants controlling labor and resources. Catholic missionaries spread across the islands. Augustinians, Franciscans. Missionaries converted the population and acted as local representatives of Spanish authority. The Philippines was no longer just a stop on a trade route. It was now a formal colony, a possession of the Spanish crown. For the next 300 years, life in the Philippines was defined by Spanish rule. This wasn't a static period. It was filled with moments of peace, periods of rebellion, and a slow, deep transformation of society. The most visible and lasting impact was religion. Spanish friars were incredibly successful. By the late 1800s, after more than 3 centuries of rule, the Spanish colonial system was starting to show serious cracks. The world was changing: liberty, equality, nationalism from Europe, from the Americas and the Philippines. A new generation, the Ilustrados, began to absorb these ideas. Many had studied in Europe. They saw the difference between life there and life back home. They began to question injustices, corruption of officials, abuses of friars, lack of opportunity for their people. They didn't call for independence yet, they demanded reforms. One powerful voice for reform was José Rizal, a brilliant writer, a doctor, and artist. He wrote 2 explosive novels, Noli Me Tangere, Touch Me Not, El Filibusterismo, The Reign of Greed, that exposed the cancer of colonial society. His books were banned, but they were smuggled into the Philippines and read in secret by thousands. Rizal argued for education, fair treatment, and representation for Filipinos in the Spanish government. By exposing abuses, he awakened national consciousness and made many people realize that change was desperately needed. The Spanish treated him as a dangerous troublemaker. Led by hardliners like General Valeriano Weyler, the government answered with repression, not compromise. They arrested intellectuals, censored newspapers, and exiled subversives, including Rizal himself. This heavy-handedness backfired. Instead of silence, it convinced many peaceful reform was impossible. If Spain wouldn't listen to reason, maybe they'd listen to force. Frustration birthed a radical movement, the secret Katipunan, founded in 1892 by Andrés Bonifacio. Their goal: not reform, but full independence by armed revolution. The tipping point came in 1896. The Katipunan was discovered, forcing Bonifacio and followers to act. The Philippine Revolution began. Filipinos from all walks of life, driven by a burning desire for freedom, rose up against their colonial masters. Spain responded with brutal force, executing suspected rebels and sympathizers. They executed José Rizal on December 30th, 1896, hoping to make an example of him. Instead, they created a martyr. Rizal's death galvanized the nation, fueling the revolution into full-scale war for independence. Just as the Philippine Revolution was raging, Filipino forces led by Emilio Aguinaldo were gaining ground. Then a new powerful player stepped onto the stage, the United States. The year was 1898. The USS Maine mysteriously exploded in Havana Harbor. The U.S. had the pretext it needed. On May 1, 1898, the U.S. Asiatic Squadron under Commodore Dewey sailed into Manila Bay. Dewey's modern steel ships annihilated the aging Spanish fleet. Filipino revolutionaries saw the Americans as powerful allies. Together, they cornered the remaining Spanish troops in Manila. The U.S. military staged a mock battle for Manila. Filipino soldiers were blocked from entering the capital. Without Filipino representatives, they signed the Treaty of Paris. Spain sold the Philippines to the United States for $20 million.